Unseen pain exposed, rancher's incredible discovery transforms everything in just 30 seconds. Jack Thompson knelt beside the rotting fence, the stench of rust and decay filling the air. He gripped the splintered wood, his heart racing as he wrestled with the fact that everything he cared about was slipping away. This land, this legacy, it wasn't just dirt and grass, it was the essence of who he was. But the harsh realities of an economic downturn and his father's failing health shadowed every sunrise. Jack's palms were sweaty, his stomach tight, each breath reminding him of the debt lingering like a storm cloud over the ranch. The weight of his father Earl's fading strength pressed harder, whispering of dreams that had fallen apart, echoing through the silent expanse of the ranch. Each day, as he fed the cattle, Jack battled the fear that his hopes would go the way of the livestock, the slaughterhouse of failure. His ambition, to innovate by studying agricultural technology at the local university, clashed violently against his sense of duty. Familial loyalty coursed through him. Could he innovate without betraying the legacy that was built on sweat, blood, and love? The internal struggle festered, dragging him into the depths of despair, wondering if he could be the architect of both tradition and change. While repairing a crumbling fence, Jack's hand brushed against something rough under the hay, an old journal with a cracked spine, pages yellowed and fragile. His grandfather's handwriting, nearly faded into the paper, leapt at him like a ghost from the past. Scribbles of crop-letting techniques danced on the page, secrets that could revive the ranch. Hope flickered, then surged through him, but an avalanche of anxiety quickly followed. With this discovery came the shadows of family secrets, tensions that had lain dormant, ready to erupt like a concealed volcano as soon as he dared to disturb the peace. Could he risk it? Could he face the wrath of his father, or the neighbors who might see him as nothing more than a foolish dreamer? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Chad, the prosperous neighbor whose name hung like a noose in conversation, thrived on backdoor deals and unethical practices. He sensed Jack's hesitation as an opportunity to push him to sell the ranch with pernicious charm. Chad's confidence filled the vacuum of Jack's uncertainty, igniting a smoldering resentment within him. The divide wasn't only about wealth, it was a battle of virtue against deception. As the community gathered to discuss Jack's burgeoning plans, tension escalated sharply. Eyes flickered from Jack to Chad, pregnant with skepticism. The air thickened, suffocating him, pulsing with palpable doubt. Jack's voice quivered as he recounted his father's bravery, the vision of his grandfather intertwined in his words. Time felt suspended until Chad's derisive laughter shattered the moment, building that unresolved chasm. In that chaos, Jack felt the full weight of his dreams and nightmares crash together, the roar of judgments echoing all around him. As he stood, poised at this alarming intersection of fear and longing, Jack braced for the consequences, knowing that everything hung by the tiniest thread, a thread spun from hope and desperation, teetering on the brink of oblivion. Jack's heart pounded in his chest, an echo of the community's silent disdain. He gripped the journal tightly, as if its brittle pages could shield him from the weight of their scrutiny. It brought forth memories of the ranch at its peak, vibrant, fruitful, alive. Every smiling face at the harvest, the laughter of his father harmonizing with the sounds of nature, swirled in his mind like a tempest. Jack had to navigate the choppy waters of family loyalty and ambition, balancing tradition with the thirst for progress. The thought of confronting Chad sent tendrils of anxiety creeping into his mind. How could he possibly go against someone so skilled at manipulation? Chad's laughter, a mixture of mockery and arrogance, still reverberated in Jack's ears. He knew that the man's power lay not just in wealth but in the ability to undermine others' confidence. The stakes had never been higher, and Jack felt it deep in his bones. As he walked back to the barn, Jack's mind sparked with possibilities. The journal held his grandfather's long-forgotten innovations. What if he could integrate those methods with modern techniques? It could be the bridge between the old and the new, a way to honor his heritage and push into a future he had only dared to dream about. Yet with each step, doubts crept in. Would anyone believe in his vision? The next day, Jack made the bold decision to share the journal's insights with his father, Earl. It felt like stepping onto a battlefield. This wasn't just about farming practices, it was about their legacy. Inside, he wrestled with the weight of his father's expectations and the possibility of resentment. He prepared, pacing the dusty floor of his home, rehearsing every word to minimize the risk of confrontation. "Dad, I found something that could help us," he said, his voice unsteady yet firm as he approached Earl, who sat by the window gazing out, lost in thought. Earl looked up, and Jack saw the storm of fatigue and weariness in his father's eyes. "What is it, son?" Jack took a deep breath and revealed the journal. As he spoke about the techniques and the potential for soil rejuvenation, he watched Earl's expression shift from skepticism to curiosity. It felt like a small victory as Jack laid out his vision of integrating the old practices with some innovative methods he had studied. But the moment was cloaked in hesitation, and Earl's furrowed brow signaled the brewing tempest. "This is not the way we do things, Jack. Your grandfather had his reasons," he cautioned, his voice resonating with old-world authority. "But times have changed, Dad. We can't cling to the past while the world moves forward," Jack countered, the urgency of his conviction pouring out. Earl's silence was a boulder in the room, a testament to the history that bound them like chains. Instead of retreating into despair, Jack pressed on, feeling a fierce determination surge within him. "We have to adapt or risk losing everything." A flicker of doubt passed through Earl's eyes, a struggle against the expectations of a life steeped in tradition. Jack's heart raced, sensing that this was a pivotal moment. Could he reclaim the power of decision from the hands of tradition? In that charged silence, something shifted in Jack. As he scrutinized the journal, he realized it wasn't just about farming techniques, it was about honoring ancestry while embracing innovation. He had to confront not only Chad but the daunting shadows of his own fear. The conflict within him swelled, demanding resolution. As he left the room, Jack felt the weight of his choices settling on his shoulders. The real battle was just beginning, one that could either open doors or shut them forever. He could see the faint outlines of a plan emerging, one that would not only transform the ranch but the man he was destined to become. The next confrontation loomed on the horizon. Could he face Chad and persuade the community that change was vital for survival? Jack's resolve hardened with each fleeting second. The time had come to confront not only the neighbor's arrogance but his own uncertainties. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that stretched across the fields. Jack stood in front of the barn, holding the weathered journal, its pages a gateway to everything he hoped to achieve. The possibility of merging old traditions with progressive methods consumed his thoughts, but a pervasive doubt gnawed at him. What if the community turned against him? Was he ready for the backlash from Chad and the others who thrived on tradition? Facing his father had stirred something deep within him, a nascent confidence edging toward recognition. Jack's newfound sense of purpose reverberated through him, yet uncertainty still shadowed his every move. Thus far, he recognized that his father's apprehension stemmed from love, but Jack could not afford to let fear dictate their future. His life's work deserved more than merely preserving the past. That he turned sharply, thinking of Chad's slimy confidence and how he wielded his social prowess like a weapon. Jack clenched his fists, feeling anger flicker over the frustrations that had become familiar. This was not just a personal battle, it was a larger fight against complacency. The realization ignited a fire within him, reconfiguring his doubt into a fierce determination to prove his worth. Jack walked through the rows of crops that grounded him in reality. Each plant whispered stories of resilience and potential, a reminder of how nature adapted over time. If they could grow and survive under shifting conditions, so could he. Inspiration surged through him as he imagined implementing his plan, firing the engine of change. He could illustrate a compelling vision for the community, blending what they held sacred with what could lead them into the future. Late that evening, Jack put pen to paper, mapping out his proposal for the upcoming community meeting. He would borrow from both the past and the future, crafting a strategy that emphasized their heritage while integrating modern necessities. His hands trembled, not out of fear but adrenaline. He was playing a pivotal role now, not merely a ranch hand but a leader set against the tides of stagnation. Despite the swell of ideas, moments of self-doubt clawed their way in. Would any of the farmers trust his vision? More importantly, how would Chad react? The thought sent chills down his spine. He considered the possibility of public ridicule but wrestled with the belief that real change required confrontation, even at the cost of losing familiarity. Sleep eluded him that night, and Jack's restless thoughts circled like hawks searching for prey. He had decided to open the conversation in the next meeting. He envisioned standing before the residents, eyes resolute, sharing the journal's insights, expressing how they could revive the land and re-establish connections to their roots while breaking from outdated practices. It felt monumental, and yet, precariously daunting. The next morning, he ran through his ideas, led by an invisible fire of commitment. Layers of fears unraveled as he practiced articulating his vision aloud. This was no longer just about him, it was a chance to reshape the narrative of their community, to redefine what it meant to be a rancher in an evolving world. As he made his way to town, a bittersweet anticipation pressed against his chest. He would have to face Chad sooner than later, and that would test not just his resolve but his foundational faith in himself and his vision. He paused at the edge of town, staring into the distance where ranches sprawled like distant siblings. What lay ahead demanded authenticity, it required him to stand resolute against external pressures and internal conflicts. Each step forward risked everything he had known, yet, every venture demands its sacrifices. With renewed vigor, Jack approached the community hall, his heart pounding with potential. The moment of truth was upon him, and as the doors swung open, he took a deep breath, ready to carve out his place in their story. The lingering question remained: how would he navigate the storm brewing around him with Chad at the helm of tradition, and would his courage be enough to upend the very foundations of their legacy? Jack stepped into the community hall, the scent of pine mingling with the stale air of anticipation. The room buzzed with chatter, familiar faces surrounded him, yet isolation crept in. Every murmured conversation felt like an obstacle to overcome. He was not just a participant in this gathering but on the edge of redefining their shared future, and the gravity of that responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. As he scanned the crowd, his heart raced. He spotted Chad, his posture relaxed, a smug grin steadily plastered on his face. Chad thrived in this environment, feeding on the adoration of those who valued the old ways without understanding the potential in evolution. Yet, in that glance, Jack found a measure of resolve. This wasn't simply a battle against Chad, it was a struggle for a future worth fighting for. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and moved toward the front of the hall, feeling every gaze settle on him. Jack prepared to unveil the fruit of his labor, an audacious vision entwined with their heritage that could steer them toward innovation. His pulse quickened as each step echoed like a countdown, urging him to embrace the unfamiliar. "Thank you all for coming together today," Jack began, his voice shaky but growing stronger with each syllable. "I want to share something that I believe could paddle our community towards growth while honoring our traditions. It can benefit us all, not just the few." He opened the worn journal, letting its pages fall into view. The stories nestled within were not mere ramblings but a conduit of wisdom connecting the past with evolving practices. He shared the insights with urgency, every word became a brushstroke on a canvas depicting hope and transformation. He emphasized crop rotation, sustainable practices, and how these could lead to better yields, concretely aligning with their agricultural roots while addressing the looming threats of modernity. As Jack elaborated, glancing briefly at the audience, he caught several intrigued expressions. But Chad's incredulous disbelief rippled through the room, contempt etched across his features, a barbed response to Jack's unfolding ambitions. He felt a wave of doubt momentarily threaten to engulf him, but he pressed on, resolved to rise above the fear. "Change doesn't mean losing our identity," Jack continued, feeling the tension of his own skin. "Adaptation is as much a part of our legacy as the traditions we cherish. We can cultivate our land with care and don't have to let age-old practices hold us back." In that moment, Jack realized he wasn't simply advocating for new methods, he was advocating for his way of life, one based on respect for both legacy and innovation. He saw himself not only revealing a vision but challenging the narrative they had long accepted, daring them to question the status quo. Then Chad stood up, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "And what makes you any better than the rest of us, Jack? Who are you to dictate what our farms should become? You think you can just come in and change everything?" Chad's words ignited a roiling storm within Jack, the confrontation solidified his stance. "I'm here to ask you to think about our future, not to dictate it. If you think we can keep doing things the same way and hope for different results, then we have more at stake than community pride. We have our livelihood." The room quieted, the tension palpable. Jack could feel the eyes of the audience between him and Chad like an electrifying current. They were listening, grappling with the core of the debate. Would they stand with the comfort of nostalgia, or would they muster the courage to tread into the unknown? As Jack stared down the challenge, the line between doubt and conviction blurred, the potential for change hung tantalizingly close. The conversation sparked, momentum shifting as more voices began to enter the fray, questioning their safety nets, challenging the routine. But as discussions began to surge, fear knotted in Jack's stomach. Advocacy for change came with divisions. How much of a price would he pay, and would this be the first break in the bonds of tradition he sought to mend, or the fracture that might destroy everything he cared about? In that charged atmosphere, he understood the true scale of his gamble. He drew a breath, discovering a new set of questions looming larger than ever before. What sacrifices would he make, and could he sail these tumultuous waters towards promise without capsizing? The moment to embrace conviction approached, and Jack braced for the real battle, one not just against Chad but on the horizon of his very beliefs. Jack felt the pulse of the room, an undercurrent of nervous energy mingling with doubt and curiosity. The questions swirling in his mind were heavy, each demanding clarity. As he stood resolute, the confrontation with Chad felt less like a battle and more like the beginning of an uncharted journey. He needed to craft that journey, not only for himself but for those around him who clung tightly to the familiar. The ensuing chatter grew more animated, voices clashed, and the undercurrents of dissent became increasingly visible. Jack noticed the faces of his fellow community members shifting with uncertainty. They were wrestling with the potential of change against the comfort of their entrenched customs. The thought of being champion versus outcast weighed on him, yet a flicker of determination ignited inside of him. With every fresh comment urging them toward the unknown, Jack adopted a strategy. He chose a few allies to draw closer, those who looked as though they were considering his vision seriously. Harold, an old farmer known for his forward-thinking ideas, caught his gaze. If he could bring Harold into the discussion, perhaps others would follow suit. Jack could shift the narrative by gathering the right minds around him, creating an atmosphere where innovation could breathe. "Harold," Jack called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "Can you share your thoughts on modern techniques? Your last harvest was impressive." Harold stood, uncertainty transforming into a growing confidence as he nodded. "I've been experimenting a bit, Jack. Tried rotating my crops last season, and I saw a nice bump in yield. It got me thinking about what we can do differently." Jack grabbed onto Harold's momentum, restructuring the room's energy. "Exactly. We don't have to abandon our roots, we can honor them while also exploring the latest practices that science has provided. Who says we have to choose one over the other?" As more community members leaned in, Jack saw Chad's smug expression falter. The subtle shift in dynamic, however small, was a testament to Jack's resolve. Yet even so, he sensed a larger storm stirring beneath the surface. Could the tide truly turn? But then Jack faltered again, a wave of self-doubt crashing over him. What if this enthusiasm was just a flicker of temporary interest? What if, when faced with implementation, they would crumble under the weight of tradition? Would he risk betraying his ideals if things didn't work out? He tightened his grip on the podium, forcing the questions aside. "Change is unsettling," he continued, his voice steady. "But it's essential for growth. Let us embrace it together, supporting one another through these transitions. Imagine our fields flourishing year after year, with our children, even grandchildren, partaking in the cultivation of new ideas. That's the legacy we should seek. A cluster of agreement unfurled among the audience. Jack felt the shift in the atmosphere as belief ignited around him. Yet, in the periphery, he could still sense Chad's brooding discontent. "We're already struggling, Jack." Chad fired back, his voice laced with skepticism. "And now you want us to gamble on ideas we've never tried? This is our life. How can you ask us to risk everything?" Jack's breath hitched. It was a valid concern, one that weighed on his heart. "I'm not asking you to risk everything, I'm asking you to invest in our future. We can reduce our risks by working together. Each method learned is a tool that can help weather any storm." The tension crystallized. Jack could feel the implications of his choices beneath the surface, threading between passion and fear. He recognized that even with newfound support, he was still a tightrope walker, each step testing his balance between innovation and tradition, hope and anxiety. As the discussion flickered around him, an unmistakable suggestion evolved from the whispers. Jack realized this was only the beginning. Every response was tinged with the potential for either growth or retrenchment. Yet beyond the immediate interactions, a deeper revelation struck him. He was more than just a voice for change, he was stepping into a role defined by conviction and leadership. For every naysayer, for Chad's relentless skepticism, there lay an opportunity to build resilience within himself and to inspire courage in others. As the gathering continued, Jack forged ahead, wondering just how far he could stretch the boundaries of what they all believed was possible. There was no turning back. And in that moment, an unexpected voice joined the fray, a challenger Jack hadn't anticipated yet would shape his journey in ways he couldn't foresee. "Maybe it's time we heard from someone who has been through it all before." Jack turned, bracing himself for whatever might come from the unexpected voice. A tall figure emerged from the back, his silhouette cutting through the dim light like a ghost from the past. It was Daniel, a seasoned rancher whose harrowing experiences had etched deep lines of wisdom and weariness across his face. Jack had always admired him but knew his tales often carried the burden of loss. "Let me share a story that might give you all a different perspective," Daniel began, his voice gravelly but steady. Flashes of interest stirred within the audience, and even Chad leaned slightly forward, curiosity mingling with skepticism. Jack's heart raced. He sensed an opportunity, a chance for Daniel to provide a reference point that could either reaffirm Jack's courage or expose the risks ahead. He took a breath, grounding himself. Daniel's tale could solidify their discussions or threaten to unravel them all. Years ago, Daniel spoke of an unyielding drought that gripped their land, a cruel thief that siphoned life from the soil and left him watching as his once thriving cattle dwindled. Jack noted the anguish welling in Daniel's eyes as he recounted the isolation and despair of those endless days. "I had to make a choice," Daniel said, fixing his gaze on Jack, who felt the weight of expectation. "I could cling to what I knew, stick with traditional practices, or forge ahead, risk the unknown, and explore new methods. It was terrifying. Every option felt like a gamble with too much at stake." Jack noticed murmurs rippling through the crowd. Familiarity with pain bred connection, and as Daniel spoke, he could feel the collective breath drawn. Here was the tangible faction of change, real consequences faced, with lessons learned etched in anguish. Change brought fear, sure, Daniel continued, his voice now resonating with conviction. But it also brought resilience. The neighbors who decided to innovate, to invest in new watering systems and sustainable crops. They are thriving. Those who didn't. They've moved on, and the land weeps for them. Jack's heart pounded, feeling the gravitas of Daniel's revelations. That voice of experience had the power to sway the room, turn indecision into momentum. Yet, could Jack withstand the repercussions if he failed to convince them after this moment? What if Daniel's past didn't resonate with the present? "Daniel, but what about risks?" Chad cut in again. "How do you know the next innovation won't bring the same heartache as the last? Aren't we just setting ourselves up for another failure among many?" There it was, the very question that gnawed at Jack. As Chad echoed his own doubts, frustration welled within him, but he channeled that energy into resolve. He had seen it in his peers this night, parts of them were ready to shift. Chad, we've already tasted failure, but it's not growth and change that leads to despair, it's a refusal to adapt. We're not asking you to throw away everything that defines us. We're proposing a partnership with our own history. It'll take patience, yes, but isn't it worth the risk to see our children and our land flourish? The room pulsed with conflicting energies. A layer of tension thickened in the air as skepticism clashed against growing hope. Jack found himself navigating the delicate terrain between past failures and potential triumphs. Here was a pivotal moment, not just for him, but for all who listened. Let's take a small step, Jack urged, summoning his courage. What if we experimented? Choose a few farms here willing to trial something new together. If it fails, we at least learn. If it succeeds, we can shape our future. The ripples of murmurs began to transform into whispers of agreement, but Jack caught Chad's angry glare, a challenge igniting in his stormy eyes. The impression felt colossal. He was wrestling with the heart of tradition in their community, and the stakes were sky-high, and in the depths of Jack's emerging authority, a chilling thought crept in: was he truly prepared for the implications of this experiment? Would it shed light on his strengths or expose his limitations? Tension built within him, the journey he envisioned ahead could very well falter at that moment. Let us hear more, Daniel said quietly. It seems Jack's proposal might hold more than just risk. Jack felt the weight of the room pressing around him, all entrapped in the gravity of his upcoming decision. Treading forward might lead to unimaginable growth, but retreat risked stagnation. And as he stood before them, the looming question remained sharp: could he really harness this surge of willingness into a transformative path? Just as he gathered those thoughts, a sudden crash from behind disrupted the atmosphere, drawing startled gasps. An unforeseen complication arose that could force Jack to confront the very heart of his thesis on risk versus stability head-on. Jack's heart raced, the cacophony of crashing wood and flailing limbs breaking through his thousand internal battles. A chair had toppled over, echoing across the room like a gunshot. Eyes darted in the direction of the noise, a collective gasp punctuating the air. Jack turned, instinctively assessing the source of the disruption. In the shadows, he spotted a man struggling to regain his balance, his face flushed with embarrassment and frustration. It was Tom, a local rancher known for his brashness, his own authority challenged by Jack's audacious proposal. "Damn it, Tom!" Chad barked, voice dripping with irritation. "This isn't a circus. Everyone's trying to listen." Tension coiled tighter around Jack, as if the very air was imbued with stakes. Tom straightened up, red-faced but defiant. "I'm just trying to understand why we should take a leap when the ground just fell out from under us." Jack grasped the moment, recognizing that this was more than a matter of chairs and dignity, it was a conflict that mirrored his fears. Tom has a point, everyone. This is a lot to digest. Let us not ignore doubts, they need to be addressed. The gravity of Jack's words deepened the silence. If he wanted to own this moment, if he wanted all those hesitant hearts weighing down the room to look to him as a source of guidance rather than uncertainty, he had to unravel his own fears first. "Change is hard," he began, voice steady, choosing each word with precision. "I know this because I've faced it myself. The notion of stepping into the unknown terrifies me. I've seen businesses crumble, families torn apart because they didn't embrace the shadows of change. But the thing is, every moment spent clinging to fear has cost us dearly. The risk lies not only in trying and failing but also in refusing to venture forth at all." A flicker of contemplation crossed Tom's face, paired with hesitance. Jack pressed on, his resolve hardening. "Each of us has scars, visible or not. Those scars tell stories of battles fought and lost. But what if I told you that our discomfort in trying something new could lead to healing those scars?" Jack's thoughts shifted, drawing from a rich tapestry of personal recollections. The number of times he had pondered his decisions, doubted himself, only to discover newfound strength through inexplicable challenges. Each moment of uncertainty had, in lessons learned, shaped who he was. He continued, offering pieces of himself that he had never fully unveiled before. I remember my first rodeo as a young man. Hands shaky, heart racing, I risked it all only to fall spectacularly a full-on faceplant into the dirt. Did I shy away after that? No. I learned, adapted, and returned with a vengeance. That fall. It taught me resilience. The only way we can surpass what restricts us is by daring to rise again. A visible shift occurred within the room, eyes widened, listening faces softened as Jack's candor ignited a flicker of introspection. Perhaps every person nodded with unspoken agreement, acknowledging their own battles with doubt and failure. Jack caught a sideways glance from Chad, less an adversarial glare and more like a crack forming in his previously solid wall of skepticism. So what now? Chad interjected, his tone less combative. Do we just jump on board your little experiment? It depends on how you see it, Jack replied, his gaze unflinching, braced for the next pushback that might come. We can choose to remain stagnant, or we can take manageable steps, journeying together into something not yet known. To fail together, or to grow together. The tension in the room shifted, reflecting more consideration and less hostility. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline. He was standing at the precipice of a defining moment not only for the ranch but for himself. The emotional turmoil of how to convince and lead transformed into purpose, igniting resilience he previously underestimated. Suddenly, amidst the muted discussions and expressions hardening into resolve, another crash from outside shattered the newfound determination, pulling attention back towards the door. It sounded urgent, almost desperate. Jack's mind raced. What else lay beyond the surface of this meeting? As the doors swung open to reveal a dust-choked figure rushing inside, Jack understood this was not merely a distraction, it was a harbinger of further challenges that lay ahead. And as he prepared to confront whatever truth the newcomer might bear, one undeniable realization propelled him forward: embracing uncertainty might be his only way of survival. What was unfolding held unresolved tensions that threatened both his plans and his sense of leadership. Here we go, Jack whispered to himself, steeling against an unknown future. Jack felt a wave of trepidation wash over him as the dust-choked figure stumbled in. The room buzzed with whispered concern, but Jack anchored his thoughts on what lay ahead. A sense of urgency propelled the newcomer forward, a woman, dark hair clinging to her forehead, eyes wild with a mixture of fear and determination. Her lips quivered as she steadied herself against the door frame. I need your help. It's urgent, she announced, cutting through the wall of tension like a knife. Jack took a step forward, pushing down the rising tide of apprehension. What happened? He asked, voice calm and inviting action. It's my son, she sputtered, glancing back as if expecting shadows to emerge behind her. He went out with the cattle earlier today, and he hasn't returned. A sudden chill swept through the room, extinguishing any remaining resolve. Tom shifted uneasily, his previous defiance flickering in the face of parental panic. Jack's mind reeled, the weight of responsibility settled squarely back on his shoulders. This was real. This was more than just a contentious meeting, it was a life-or-death situation. Where did he go? Jack asked, carefully observing the woman's features for steadiness. Did he have any specific route he was taking? West, toward the cliffs, she replied, worry stark across her face. He said he wanted to scout new grazing ground, said it was a perfect day for it. But the weather turned, and we've heard nothing since lunchtime. Jack exhaled slowly, processing the information. He remembered the ominous clouds that had been rolling in during their meeting, unnoticed. Time was short, and lives depended on immediate action. Gritting his teeth, he looked around the room. Everyone, listen up. We need to act quickly. I'll lead a group to search for him immediately. Chad shifted, uncertainty brewing behind his eyes, but before he could voice his objections, Tom interjected. Count me in, he said, his bravado dissipating in the face of urgency. Each minute we waste could put the kid in danger. Jack nodded appreciatively. He felt a flicker of unity igniting among the assembled ranchers. Just moments ago, they had stood at odds, but now, with a shared purpose, they could achieve what had seemed insurmountable. "Let us get organized," Jack instructed, his voice rich with resolve. "We need horses, flashlights, and plenty of water. We'll split into teams. Each team will cover a different area to maximize our search." As the room burst into action, Jack's mind worked a mile a minute. He had begun this meeting hoping to instill confidence, to catalyze collective growth, yet here he was, thrust back into chaos where fear resonated anew, yet, amidst the intensity, Jack felt a strange clarity. He was no longer just a leader presenting ideas, he was a man with skin in the game, navigating uncertainty head-on and embodying the vulnerability he had sought to share earlier. Fear pinged within him, a reminder of his doubts. Could he be effective in guiding this group under such pressure? And what if he failed? But then he caught sight of the worried but determined eyes of the boy's mother. Her desperation ignited a flame in him, sparking a conviction to fight against his sidelining thoughts. "Remember," Jack called as they rushed out, "we're not just searching for a child, we're bringing back hope. We show each other that no one is alone in this." Once outside, the air was stifling, thick with impending rain. Determination surged through him, and he realized that leading was about more than plans and presentations, it was about stepping into peril to uncover the unseen pain of those you were meant to protect. His heart pounded as they mounted their horses and set off, riding into the threatening storm. So many elements lay in disarray, yet Jack felt an anchor of purpose inside him. It was a revelation his evolution had begun to transcend the realm of mere ideas. He was in the thick of action now. As they galloped onward, a thought gripped him. What if, in confronting this unknown threat, he could not only find the boy but also unlock a reluctant transformation in each of the men behind him, including himself? Facing what was most daunting could ultimately lead to discovering strength and unity that he had never envisioned, but then again, what lay ahead in that ominous storm? Would they find the boy in time, or would the darkness swallow their resolve whole? The wind whipped around them, a howl that sliced through the weight of silence. Jack's heart raced as they rode deeper into the heart of the approaching storm, the urgency of their mission gripping them all. With each thundering hoofbeat, fear resonated within him, augmented by the uncertainty that clouded their path. "Keep your eyes peeled," he shouted, his voice barely able to cut through the tumultuous gusts. The ranchers nodded, a shared understanding binding them together as they spread into a loose formation, scanning the terrain. Jack established a mental checklist, the once vague fears becoming tangible threats. They were not merely searching for a child, they were illuminating their own fears, their unwillingness to embrace the chaos of life's uncertainties. A flash of lightning illuminated the path ahead, revealing the towering cliffs. He could feel the weight of his fellow searchers' expectations pressing on his shoulders like the storm clouds above. Each man had his own doubts and stakes in this search, and Jack recognized that the challenge lay not just in finding the boy but in dealing with the emotional tempest of the group itself. Out of character, he had always preferred solitude. He was known for being methodical, precise, and averse to the emotional chaos derived from collective uncertainty. Yet here, amidst the severity of the situation, he discovered something unsettling. His leadership was being forged in the fire of their shared fear. It demanded an authenticity he often shunned. Tom veered closer, anxiety flickering across his face. "What if we don't find him?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Jack's instinct was to reassure him, yet he sensed the truth that lay beneath those words, the unspoken fear of loss, failure, and regret. "We will find him," Jack asserted, but internally, doubt gnawed at him. What if the storm's fury snuffed out their hopes? He felt vulnerable, yet vibrant in that vulnerability. Jack was a leader not simply because of his skill, but because he could embrace fear without succumbing to it. As they continued forward, he caught glimpses of the ranchers' faces, all shadowed by the encroaching storm. Their eyes expressed a blend of hope and trepidation. Each determined face illuminated in flashes of lightning was a reminder of his true purpose, to unite their strengths, to guide them through this collective anxiety, and to emerge not just as individuals but as a potent force for each other. Jack's mind raced ahead, strategies formed with clarity that had long eluded him. They needed to adopt an approach that would not only cover ground but also maintain morale. "All right, let us pause for a moment," he ordered, gathering the group around him. "We'll dedicate 10 minutes to scan the perimeter thoroughly and rally together. If we split our focus and energy, we lose precious time, and if one of us gets separated in this," he hesitated, the implications clawing at him. "We need to remain a unit." As he spoke, Jack felt a shift within himself. There it was, an unyielding strength emerging as he faced the very thing he had feared. Each rancher seemed to resonate with an awakening spirit, the urgency transforming into resilience. For the first time, he wasn't just orchestrating them as shepherd and sheep, he felt embraced by them, an organic extension of their collective will. But as the rain began to pelt down, the winds shifted direction, carrying an ominous sound. It was coupled with a distant cry, a ghastly echo that brought dread to a boiling point. The realization crashed over him like thunder: could it be the boy? Jack's heart lurched, the stakes suddenly palpable. He sensed a convergence of dread and determination fueling him onward. The time had come to face not just the storm ahead but the fears spiraling within. The unity he'd inspired could ignite a powerful force. They could not simply depend on hope but must act decisively. "Prepare to move out," he shouted, his voice emerging like a lighthouse amid darkness, and just like that, a new reality emerged for Jack. He was no longer shackled by the fear of failure. He would be defined by the actions he took in the face of it. What would they discover as they approached that haunting cry? Would they find hope or despair in the heart of the storm? As the rain pelted down, the world around Jack Thompson transformed into a blur of gray and urgency. Each raindrop was a guitar string plucked against the tension in his chest, escalating like a symphony of apprehension, yet propelled by the drumbeat of determination. His heart raced with purpose, steering him and his fellow ranchers toward an unyielding commitment they had yet to fully embrace, helping one another in a dire moment. "Stay close," Jack bellowed, the words sharp and defined like the bleak horizon before them. There was no time for doubt. He needed to guide the group toward a singular, unified goal, finding the missing boy, the essence of what they all fought for, the future. As they traveled deeper into the storm's heart, fueled by instinct rather than fear, Jack found clarity. The collective anxiety morphed into solidarity. It was undeniable. Each rancher, previously weighed down by skepticism, was woven into the fabric of a mission larger than themselves, their hearts beating as one. The distant cry echoed again, curdling Jack's blood. "It's coming from over there," he shouted, directing their collective energy toward a ridge that nearly vanished under dark clouds. Desperation and persistence mingled in the air around them like the charged atmosphere before a lightning strike. Jack's legs tingled beneath him, the audience of his previous struggles fused into a single act of valiance. Jack led the way up the muddy slope, his instincts guided him without hesitation. He had come to know that true leadership was woven through vulnerability, fear, and the ability to rally others around a shared goal. "Together," he urged, "we will get him back." The words ignited something in the group that made them charge forward, hearts pounding with a newfound spirit. As they approached the cliff's edge, the faint sound of a child whimpering reached Jack's ears. His pulse quickened, the boy was so close. Just ahead, he spotted a small figure huddled against the rocky outcrop. "There!" Jack shouted, and without thought, he bounded toward the child, crouching down to meet the boy's frightened eyes, wild with panic but alive with the spark of a chance. "Jack!" The voice trembled with disbelief, yet relief washed over Jack as he recognized the unmistakable face of the missing boy. "You came for me?" "Of course, we did," Jack replied, his heart swelling with parental protectiveness. "You're safe now." Instinctively, he reached out, pulling the boy into a firm embrace. For Jack, the act coalesced into everything he strived for: the protection of the next generation, a bond tied to the heart of the ranch, and with it, the legacy of his father and grandfather. The others arrived, breathless yet steady, their camaraderie fortified by purpose. As the boy's mother rushed forward, tears streaming down her face, she engulfed her son in a sincere warmth that radiated forgiveness and cherished love. Jack stepped back as they reunited, the reality of what they had accomplished sinking deep into his bones. It was not merely a rescue, it was a vivid testament of overcoming barriers, confronting uncertainty, and choosing solidarity. This moment encapsulated their very existence, bound together by the land and the love they shared for one another. In retrospect, Jack realized this day had catalyzed his transformation. He was more than just a rancher with a dream, this was his awakening as a leader, a frontiersman tempered by fear yet steeled by courage. The anxiety that once gripped his heart was replaced with solid confidence. He had proven that change could arise from unity, that through shared struggle, growth manifested itself, a foundation for their future that combined the legacies of the past with the promise of transformation. As they retraced their steps through the storm, Jack felt lighter, liberated by the clarity of purpose. Even Chad, the ever-challenging adversary, wore a newfound expression, respect mingling with the remnants of doubt in his eyes. "Maybe we could learn a thing or two about working together," he muttered, almost in reflection of himself. Jack smiled knowingly. "It's time to start a conversation about blending old traditions with innovative approaches." He felt an irrepressible surge of satisfaction. He had not only succeeded in finding the boy, he had initiated real change and forged a bond with those around him, ushering in an era where progress and heritage could coexist harmoniously. He looked around at the faces of his fellow ranchers, their weariness intertwining with hope, and realized he had truly arrived at a pivotal point in his life as a rancher, a son, a leader. He was not merely preserving the past, he was crafting a legacy rooted in both tradition and progressive innovation. Jack's journey had successfully shifted from isolation in self-doubt to a thriving community of empowered individuals ready to embrace the future. They had taken risks, weathered storms, and emerged not unscathed but strengthened, united by their shared purpose. This was not the end of his journey, it was merely the beginning. As Jack approached the end of the path, he turned to his companions. "Let us make a plan," he declared, hope threading through the remnants of fear. "Our ranch can become a beacon of possibilities if we work together." The commitment filled the air around them like a promise. Jack stood tall, fortified by newfound confidence and pride in what they had achieved together, embodying the spirit of the land they had pledged to nurture. Ranchers united in vision, they were ready to conquer whatever lay ahead. Change had arrived, bringing with it the chance for renewed futures, all sparked by the courage to step into the unknown. Now, my friends, this is your moment to make valuable choices that lead to transformation. You need to subscribe now to the channel so we can continue exploring these powerful journeys of personal growth together. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly helps. Comment your reactions and thoughts about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring resolution. Don't wait even one more second to share. This is how we grow stronger, together.